What if you woke up tomorrow and every single dream you ever had actually came true? Every bank account was full, every person on earth respected you, and you had the smartest mind in human history. You'd think you were finally set, right? But what if I told you the man who actually lived that life ended up hating it? We're talking about King Solomon, a man who reached the finish line of every human desire, only to realize he had been running the wrong race the entire time. Most people spend their lives chasing a fraction of what this man had, but at the end of his life, he looked back at his massive legacy and called it a total waste. If you've ever felt like you're working for nothing, or if you're worried that your life is slipping through your fingers, you need to hear this. Don't go anywhere, because the final conclusion Solomon reached is the only thing that will keep you from making the same mistake he did. Solomon started out as a hero. He was only 20 when he became king, and when God asked him what he wanted, he didn't ask for money or a long life. He asked for wisdom. God was so pleased with that request that he gave him a mind unlike anyone else's. He could solve any riddle, lead any nation, and understand the deep mysteries of the world. But here's the first hard truth Solomon learned. Increased wisdom often leads to increased sorrow. He realized that no matter how smart we get, we still can't fix the crooked parts of life. We have more technology today than ever before, yet people are still hurting. We have more medicine, yet death still comes for everyone. Solomon looked at the world's problems and realized that trying to solve them through human intellect alone is like trying to grab the wind. It's impossible. If you think you're going to find peace just by knowing more or being smarter than everyone else, you're going to be disappointed. The world stays crooked no matter how much you know. Solomon didn't just have brains. He had unbelievable wealth. He built palaces that made the wonders of the world look like shacks. People traveled from the ends of the earth just to bring him gold and silver. He had the kind of status we dream about when we check our follower counts or our job titles. But he eventually realized that status is nothing but a vapor. He looked at his massive bank account and realized something terrifying. He was going to die and leave it all to someone else. And that person might be a complete fool who would blow it all in a single weekend. He worked his whole life to build an empire, only to realize he had zero control over it once he was gone. He even said that both the wise man and the fool end up the same way, buried and forgotten. Thousands of years later, we still talk about him. But honestly, how often does his wealth actually impact your daily life? It doesn't. Status is like smoke. It looks solid until you try to lean on it, and then you fall straight through. Think about the things Solomon built. He is most famous for building the first Jewish temple. It was the most magnificent building in history, and the presence of God literally moved in. Solomon thought this building would last forever, but God gave him a warning. He said he would stay there as long as Solomon was faithful, but if he started acting like the rest of the world, God would leave. Solomon eventually realized that nothing man-made lasts. Humans are like animals in a way. We're here one day, happy and thriving, and the next day, disaster or death whisks us away. We have no control over the seasons of our lives. If you are building your identity on your career, your house, or your physical beauty, you are building on sand. Solomon saw this clearly at the end of his life. He saw that the buildings would crumble and the gold would eventually be carried away by enemies. This is where his advice gets really practical for those of us living in a hustle culture. Solomon shares a story about 3 types of people. The first person is lazy and destroys himself by doing nothing. The second person is a workaholic, filling both hands with stuff but having no peace because he's always looking for the next big thing. But the third person, and this is a major secret, works to fill only one hand and stays at peace. Solomon was the second person. He reached for the second hand every single time, and it left him lonely, angry, and exhausted. He realized that work is a gift from God, but it's meant to be enjoyed, not worshipped. If you can't enjoy the one hand God has given you right now, you'll never be happy with 2. Contentment is the only way to stop wasting your life on greed and comparison. We also have to talk about the dark side of Solomon's life. He was a pleasure addict. He had 1,000 women, 700 wives, and 300 concubines. He used his unlimited power to feed a never-ending appetite for lust. But he found out the hard way that unbridled pleasure is an evil affliction. He describes a life where God gives a man everything he desires, but doesn't give him the power to actually enjoy it. Imagine having the finest meal in the world, but having no sense of taste. That was Solomon. He had 1,000 women, but no real love. His addiction didn't fill his soul. It caused it to rot. He realized that the very things he thought would bring him life were actually chains keeping him prisoner. He was the wisest man alive, yet he was a slave to his own desires. Because his heart was turned by his many wives, Solomon began worshiping false gods. He went from building a temple for the true God to sacrificing to idols that demanded horrific things. This shows us that your compromises will eventually consume you. The very nations he made peace treaties with ended up being the ones that supported his enemies and helped destroy his kingdom. Every shortcut Solomon took to find peace or power turned around and bit him. If you think you can compromise your values just a little bit to get ahead, you need to look at Solomon. He lost the very kingdom he was trying to protect because he stopped fearing the God who gave it to him in the first place. He forgot that wisdom without obedience is just a different kind of foolishness. As Solomon reached the end of his days, he became incredibly cynical. He said it's actually better to be at a funeral than a party, because a funeral reminds you of what's real. He saw good people die young and villains live long lives. It didn't make sense to him under the sun. But the final conclusion of his story is the most important part. He says that after everything has been heard, there is only one thing that matters: fear God and keep His commandments. Why? Because God is going to judge every secret thing, whether it is good or evil. Solomon's life proves that everything in this world, money, sex, fame, is just smoke. It's meaningless if it isn't connected to eternity. But when you live for God, you are storing up things that actually last. This is the truth that pulls you out of a dark place and gives your life real weight. Stop chasing the wind and start living for the King, whose kingdom will never collapse. Your life is too valuable to waste on things that vanish the moment you touch them.